sorts of considerations that we can go into the data visualization. First and foremost is the story, what you're trying to tell with the data. Sometimes we get requests to show something in the data set, and the data set doesn't actually support what people want us to show. So being true and faithful to the data is a very important part of doing data visualization. Also, one of the primary considerations is who the audience is. If you're introducing concepts to lay people, you're going to have to kind of hold their hands and kind of getting them familiar with the domain. If you're doing something for experts, less perhaps hand-holding explanation is required. You just drop them in, and you can quickly look at a few labels and they know exactly what they're looking at. So that consideration informs the way we approach the project. Once we know the story that we want to tell with the data, then we start experimenting with form and different presentations of the data, trying to find representations that highlight the interesting aspects of the data. And finally, bring the interaction into that to essentially expose different parts of the data, make everything come together, reveal things that you might not be able to show. So, time permitting, I'm going to show 3 projects. And the first is has to do with cars. So, we're working with Progressive Car Insurance. And they have this program called Snapshot, where they take a device, stick it into your car, and basically takes a speedometer reading every second. And they use they use that to basically see how good a driver you are, how often you slam on the brakes, how quickly you keel out, when you're driving. These are all factors that go into their models to figure out whether you're a safe driver or not, and get discounts. And this is a really interesting data set. One, the resolution is really nice. Speed for every second that someone's driving. It's not always built. Second, you can link it to stuff that's on the insurance policy, the zip code of the policy owner, the make and model of the car. So you can try to start looking at driving behavior by make and model of automobile or by place. You've got gender information for the policy holder, some demographics, marital status, estimations of how wealthy they are, so class, race, gender, all this really powerful stuff. And that's some of what they wanted to show. Now, speaking to the notion of what does the data support, they wanted to show stuff like that. But actually, the data doesn't support it because it was the driving behavior associated with the policy, not with the person who's actually driving the car. So it might be, you think you're looking at the driving behavior of middle-aged people, but actually you're looking at the driver, their kids are driving the car, and it's crazy. So we explored that for a while and we found that we really couldn't tease an accurate story of the song. So one thing that we did tell was what you're seeing here. So we've got a map of the United States and a timeline across the bottom. And basically we've got the different time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific. And we've basically broken it up by zip code. And each zip code has this little, it's kind of raised and is colored more darkly based on how many cars are driving in that zip code at that time. And we thought this might be kind of interesting to see the different driving patterns. Now, the first way to represent that makes sense is we'll just kind of stack the size, the height, or the color based on the total number of cars that are driving that line. Well, then you basically get a very consistent map where New York City is always really high, and rural counties in Alabama are really flat and very pale because there are just more people always driving in New York. So we had to find a different metric to tell this story. So what we ended up doing was finding the 5-minute bucket where the most cars were on the road for each zip code. And then basically finding for each 5-minute bucket during the day how many cars were on the road at that point and comparing it to the maximum for that zip code. And so that's how you get a kind of flatter presentation. That's kind of fun. If you start at 3 a.m., pretty much you know what's on the road. And as you get closer to rush hour on the East Coast, you see that there's a lot more people hitting the road now. And the central time zone is starting to wake up. East Coast succeeds, and the central time zone, people are really hitting the road. And the mountain is specific. trim. We've got some states in there that are totally blank. Basically, insurance regulations don't allow this program to happen in that state, so there's no data there. So to continue with the evening rush hour, you can see the same things. Okay. Next time. Who doesn't like maps of the United States? So that was one of the stories we were able to teach on the data. Another one was also interesting. We wanted to show just how fine range the data was. So they get speedometer readings for every second. This one shows basically how many people are driving during an average day. It's an average, it's kind of big picture, but we wanted to show really fine range detail. So we found the busiest minute in 2011. We got basically all their driving data from 2011. Found the busiest minute, which was 5:14 p.m. on September 14th. I think it was a Thursday, so Thursday rush hour. And we basically got all the cars on the road at that point. There's some 20,000 cars. And we got the speedometer readings for the entire minute for each one of those cars. And so what you have, basically every little dot that's there moving is one of the cars that's on the road during that minute. They're organized by their average speed. So the fastest ones are at the top, slower ones at the bottom. They're basically moving across the street at the speed they were actually driving during that second. We've got a little clock, so it's 30 seconds, we have 33 seconds into the minute now. So you get essentially the big picture of what's happening with all the data. 60 seconds for 20,000 cars. You've got 1.2 million data points going out across the street in the course of a minute. And then you actually have the detailed data for every car. Once you zoom in, you can actually see the make and model. There's 2,000 on the current data. And you've also got the histogram of the speed it was driving during that time, during that minute. So this particular second, which is supposed to be roughly 50 seconds into the minute, this car's not moving. But this one is going a little bit slower, but once the stop, it's going to move really fast. Yeah, this guy is probably stuck in red light right now, and then they'll start speeding up. And this is another example of one of the things that we try to do with our project. We want to show, in the data, you often hear the expression, you can't see the forest for trees, or trees for forest, vice versa. We try to show both. So right now we've got, big picture, everything playing out. You can see all the data in action there. But you can also quickly zoom in to find the very high resolution data for each individual data point. Kind of highlight some types of cars. So not a lot of convertibles are causing much on traffic. There are a lot of sedans, wagons, and typically rush hour. People are not out in their roadsters with their convertibles. And also, zoom in. It's not just hot, it's actually text. This is another case where we iterated through design. We experimented with little hardness, showing convertible versus hatchback. But when you're getting pretty small, a sedan doesn't look that different from a wagon or a fancy SUV. It's kind of fun to show. So yeah, this is something that we did with Joseph. They actually decided to keep it internal, so it's moving on always, so it will always be recent work for us. The next project is not a project, it's a highway. This is one that's going live today. We've been working for the past year with Thomson Reuters, journalists there. So talking about data and stories in the data, we're working with journalists, they write stories for a living, so this is a great starting point. And it was sort of a privilege because we work with them to identify what the story should be, and then also work with them to figure out what the data they would need to create to support the story. When I say create the data, I'm not saying that they would make up stuff. They would actually say, oh, okay, we need to support this sort of thing, so let's go and research it. And once we've got it supported and verified, we can actually update it. So we were able to create something very specific with them. And the topic was basically political power in China. China is undergoing a change in the guard, essentially, that happens once every decade. The first part of it happened in the fall, and the next part is going to start next week, which I think we really will release it today, because we want to have that before that power shift happens. Yeah, they want to basically create a way for Western audiences to understand politics. It's very different. It's a single-party system. It's supposedly a democracy, but the citizens don't vote for who's in power. Because it's a single-party system, you've got the Chinese Constitution actually says that the power is invested in the party more than it's invested in the government. People take power in the party before they take power in the government. So institutionally, it's very different, and also the way that working with the journalists at Thomson Reuters, I think they want to show us also the social connections influence gaining power. Obviously, connections matter everywhere, but in China it's a little bit more different. What you have right now with the incoming leaders is many of them are direct descendants of this huge revolutionaries, people who were working with Mao Zedong in the initial communist revolution. Their children are taking power, and one of the reasons that they are taking power is because they were able to tap the networks of their parents. So we've got kind of social networks, we've got institutions, we've got the way organizations come together, and we've got the way that people rise to power. So these were all the stories that we wanted to tell. I'm not going to show everything in the application, but I'm going to show the most important stuff. So starting with the institutional part. So this is one of the cases where, again, we're leading people who might not know anything about the domain into something. And we want them to learn about it. We want to kind of give them an overview, but we also want to be able to see the details. And so we've got, on the left here, we've got this guide explaining, to some extent, what we're seeing up here. And what it's basically telling you is that there's one organization that's at the top of the country. It's called the Political Bureau, I think the full formal name is really long, but it's basically called the Politburo Standing Committee. It's the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. And basically, it's 7 people, and they can act with essentially full authority of the Communist Party. So it's the most important organization in China. Another aspect of the Chinese system that's a little different from what we have here is that each person holds multiple offices. So, and that's some of the transition we're seeing now. So this guy, Xi Jinping, he is currently the head of the Communist Party. Next week, he will be president of China. Everyone knows that he's not going to that's away from office, but that's what's going to happen. People have known it for a few years. So he's head of the Communist Party. We're showing that here on the short chart. You can see that the red square is basically offices that he holds. So he's a member of the Political Bureau and a Central Committee, obviously. And he's also the head of the Central Coordinating Group for Hong Kong and Macau affairs. Hong Kong and Macau used to were under possession of Britain. They're handed back to for China to rule them. They're kind of hotspots for international issues. They're not fully integrated in the Chinese system. There's a lot of light shown on them, so it's a very important aspect. So that's why he's sitting in that committee. He's also head of deputy head for foreign affairs, party building, and central organization committee. So he holds multiple offices in the Communist parties. He also is currently vice president. And he's also vice chairman of the Central Military Commission on the state side and on the party side, which means he's head of the military. So that's the number one. The number 2 person, he's got he's a member of the Central Committee in the Politburo, and he also is head of the finance and economics in the party. On the government side, he holds a ton of positions. He's very busy on the government. But he's number two. Number one is really busy in the party. Number two is really busy in the government. But they both hold positions in both places, and that's one of the ways that the power is kind of expressed through the party into the government, and into the military. And the same applies to these guys. The rest of them, some of them are not. For instance, he doesn't have anything, any government roles right now. Next week he will, because they are going to announce the government positions. At the same time they announce that Xi Jinping is going to be president, they'll announce the way that the G7 are going to take over various government roles. Now from here we can go and explore basically a really fancy org. And it's got the three different aspects, the three different arms. There's the party, government, and military. And these are the most important types of organization in China. They're nominally distinct, but interestingly they kind of connect in various ways. And one of the things we had to do to make this work was really edit the org chart. We essentially chose the organizations to show up in here that we needed to show in order to make this work. So if you look closer, see there's more organizations. There are a lot. So in terms of editing an overview, we had to use carefully to figure out how to show enough to make this work compelling without creating so much data that you get lost early. But we also want to provide enough details so if you really want to get into the details, you can find it. So as you get into less, or as you zoom in, you see that there are more examples. You can also go in and look at organizations in detail. So now they've got, this is another thing that's wonderful about journalists, they will write a story for this organization that describes what it does. And they'll also list the most important people who serve in it. And so we're using this overview of the org chart as a mechanism to navigate down to very fine-grained detail, deep detail for each element in there. And what you're seeing here, essentially, is the National People's Congress and its relations to a bunch of other organizations. So the gold lines essentially show control between this organization and other parts of the government or the party or the military. It doesn't here. You can see the National People's Congress has relationships with government organizations. So it basically nominally oversees the presidency, state council, Supreme People's Court, and the Procurator, which is essentially the district attorney, the general attorney. And on the party side, or the government, so it has links to those government organizations, and then the party also receives delegates from various organizations within the party. So across the government and the party work together to kind of consolidate power. Sort of, it looks like it's checks and balances, but basically at the top of the party and the government, you've got the same people, and the branches has power. Or at least he fits. It's not quite as despotic because they're held in check, sort of networks from the two things. Basically, overview, navigation, get to the center. Or to the details. And choosing the presentation and emphasize the way that the power is organized. Now, one different aspect of Chinese politics is the way that people get to the most powerful positions. In the U.S., we have people who run for president who are, they governors or senators, governors of states, or they are senators in the U.S. Congress. or sometimes you get image running who come directly out of the business world, you get actors, you get all sorts of people running for president. In China, that doesn't happen. There's apparently a very fixed way that people come up to power. And what the path is that they started kind of low-rank positions. Well, first they join the party, then they started kind of low-rank positions, then they move up to lead a province. Usually it's a small province and then more major provinces than that. Then they step up on the national stage, and if they continue to do what politicians need to do, they can become one of the top leaders. And so what we're looking at here is essentially a timeline for Hu Jintao, the outgoing president. And we can see, he kind of jumped a couple steps here. He didn't spend any time in sort of a deputy role in the provinces. He went right to a chief provincial role, and he went right to a chief sort of national role, and then he became a top leader. So the chief national role, I believe, he is a member of the Polk Roast, and then he became president. And this is Xi Jinping, the incoming president, kind of his path, and here organized by age instead of by timeline, compared to Hu Jintao's. So Hu Jintao's kind of great out. You can see that he's got to these positions at a younger age than Xi Jinping. But Xi Jinping is getting to be president at a younger age than Hu Jintao. And age matters because they've got forced retirement ages. At the provincial level, provincial deputies, I think this is like 55, 60, 65. If you make it to the the Polk Roast committee by the time you're 65, you get to serve out until the next Congress, which is finally clear. If you don't make it, you're out. And so this guy that we're showing now, he's out. The speed with which he rose is similar to that of Xi Jinping, but he's too old to be more than a president, becoming one of the top leaders. So now, and then we need to look at which we can compare to. So this is the number one, which right now, this is the number two, the guy who holds all the government roles, those are 30 roles. See, they're both pretty young, stepping up on the national stage. We can compare them to the outgoing president, and the president before him, James Newton. We can organize by year. And so we've got these options to look at by age and year. Year is kind of important because you want to see who's in power. Right? So we figure people do it. Jiang Zemin in blue, and Hu Jintao in blue, Xi Jinping in orange. And there's a few years there where Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao were both kind of serving the top roles. One had more power in the military, one had more power in the government party. And then ages. This is kind of nice too because we can, additionally, we've got people who are up and coming. So we can compare to this person who's now shown in blue. You can see he's coming from a pretty fair clip as well. So he's younger than most Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping, kind of doing the deputy level on the national scale. See how they're going to do that. And one of the ways that they work their research methods. And so we want to kind of explain that. So I guess there's a word I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly. Guanxi, it's essentially, in the Western analogy, would be like social capital. Essentially how much pull and influence you have. And there are various ways that you get this. By having lots of relations with people. And so the incoming, a lot of the incoming powerful people are known as princelings. These are the direct descendants of formerly powerful Chinese leaders. You can marry into power. That is popular. These people are called Golden Son Law. And we've got passing front leaders. The biggest, and we've got a couple different representations here. We've got the circles and the stars. The stars are people who serve on the Polk Roast things, and we've got the 7-pointed star. That's a nice way to create that big distinction. These stars are filled in are people who are currently on the Polk Roast thing. The ones that are empty are people who are retired, but they still hold the which is why that star right there is black. The Hu Jintao still probably the most powerful person in China, due to the close he holds and the relationships he has. And so here you can see, the princelings that have affiliated themselves with Hu Jintao. So these are the ones who hold princelings. They were born of power and in in power. These are people who are obviously the current leaders, but they got that way, at least in part via the princeling stacks. And you can see how they know each other. Another aspect is the different coalitions. So they're essentially called different power bases. There's communist usually is Huangpai. In the Shanghai was a power center and a lot of communist there. And so Hu Jintao, that big star, he's the head of Huangpai. Jiang Zemin is the president of war enemies on top of the Shanghai clique. And the current members of the Politburo here all have relations to one or more of them. It's kind of interesting that Hu Jintao is president. Before him was Jiang Zemin, but more of these guys in the current corporate state have ties to Jiang Zemin and to Hu Jintao. So Jiang Zemin was very influential, even though he's been retired for a few dozen years. He was very influential in getting his people in power with this elections. And then maintaining relations with powerful people is, of course, one of the ways that you get power in your social network. And so see them move around. So, by showing this presentation, I'm kind of giving you a background of how people use their social networks to achieve power. And then we drop you into a highly edited social network. So we talked before about how, well, okay, this is a social network. Most times when you look at social networks, this. And great. This can be an effective way to show all the different aspects of data and strengths and clustering. But if I didn't tell you this was a social network, you might not know it's a social network. Internet servers or just about any kind of network. There's nothing about these presentations that specifically say what is it about the data we're doing, what's interesting about this network. We can see things that are specific to networks, clustering, and different groups and layouts. There's a lot that can be done with this, but it might not tell us the most important story that we're trying to get across. So here, we're showing essentially Xi Jinping's network, showing 2 degrees of separation, able to listen to the relations, and the people that they're connected to. Now, in addition, because the family and the relationships with family are so important, we've got this family shown on the left side. And essentially, even if they're not directly connected to Xi Jinping, if they're connected to his family, that's close enough to put them in his first degree connection. So his dad worked right alongside Mao, and then kind of got purged during the Cultural Revolution, so he was basically stripped of power, and then was gradually restored after a while. But his dad has relations to these people, so we colored them in blue. Kind of, yes, Xi Jinping, he's got influence with them. They have influence with him, but they're not directly his relations. He inherited them. And now we've got all the people in his network and see who they're connected to. So Jiang Zemin, 2 presidents ago, very well connected. Though some of his connections are not the ones you necessarily want to have. He's a rival of Hu Jintao, the current president. He's Shanghai clique. hours going hard. Now, another way it's nice to work with journalists is, I just realized the screen is a little too small. Well, actually, well, one thing that they can do is they can write articles that go along with with the data that we're seeing. So what we have here is basically a short essay that describes how she did it. Filters net that she it's got some people in the articles were highlighted. You can see where they are in his mail. And additionally, each person, everyone has their specialties. You can see that Xi Jinping is very strong in internal party affairs, and then we're also showing the people who helped him achieve that, whether they're in his family, like his dad, or it's his power directly, or his family gave him some of that power, whether he got it from his network. We're showing people in his network. In the state affairs, military, or overseas. From here we can quickly look at other people. So one thing we're not doing with this network, it's very faint here. There's a little bit more labeling going on this. That's the other computer screen that kind of buckets these people and groups them. Hopefully we'll be able to see it today on the web. But we're not showing all the relations that we're talking about, showing just the global massive network, because that's just not the story that we really want to tell. So with the editing, with the, this presentation, really makes the story. Yes, sir?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can people in China also use the science?
No one can yet. Hopefully at 4 o'clock today, people will be able to. What we expect is that, yes, it will be open to Chinese people, and we expect that the government will quickly jump in and censor it, and won't allow it to, will basically block it. China has some of the most powerful internet censorship in the world. Yeah, one of the background stories that's kind of led to the tension and some of the delays in actually releasing this. We've had several launch dates. But last year, Bloomberg did a story on essentially how princelings and how they got power and sort of corruption. Bloomberg got totally isolated, like shut out from Chinese web browsers. And in fact, Bloomberg has a sales department where they sell these terminals for financial applications, and they have not been able to make a single sale in China since that article was published. New York Times in the fall, or in the summer and fall, did some articles on Wen Jiabao, the outgoing premier, and how they didn't specifically say there's corruption here. They outlined all the ways in which, hey, it turns out that while Wen Jiabao was premier, his family got really rich. I mean, they got billions. They just, isn't that funny how that happened? And they pointed that out, and they actually specifically said in articles, we don't know if Wen Jiabao was involved directly. There's no evidence to say that he was. They got lost. New York Times has been shut out. Like, New York Times isn't even existing. So we kind of expect that will happen. So the question is, it'd be kind of fun to see just how quickly it happens. We're not specifically saying that there's corruption or that, hey, they did get power to do this, but I expect that, reading between the lines, the censorship people in China will say, we don't want this story to be told. So yeah, so 4 o'clock today, if you've got any people in China, hopefully it'll be available then. Oh, it will be connectedchina.reuters.com. This is not that live site. This is actually running off my computer, and I actually don't have all the assets that are going into the page. And we've also got we've got news stories with lots of pictures that I don't have on my computer. Obviously, that's why I wasn't going to show it to you. But they've got lots of stories here. They've kind of got a China 101 that kind of helps explain how these different parts of the application work. And since I'm showing you the broken image, I think we've also got this kind of fun. It shows kind of highlights as additional context, kind of the history of highlights from the history of the People's Republic of China. So, you know, calling out a few of the best ones on the side here. So we can see this is China. Tiananmen Square, which in China it's referred to as the June 4th Festival, because lots of things happen in Tiananmen Square in China. Yes, sir.
Sorry, by the way, I think there's a figure that it should be 1918.
Yes, you're right. It is. And actually, in the production group, if you go to unitedchina.worders.com today, you will see 1989. Okay. Okay. So yes, this is this is definitely about history. One thing that's fun about this timeline is the scroll bar over here. So essentially, what that is these lines, you know, the year that when something interesting happened. And highlighting here, basically, these show all the things, you know, the full range of what's visible on the screen. So it's kind of fun if you expand it. If you get a big model, that line of strength is for things. Essentially, that's an indicator of everything that's visible to you. We've got that. More articles, we also have that. Okay. I'm not sure if you'll see this at 4 o'clock. This is one where they said that the statistics today are inaccurate. So in addition, so one more thing I want to point out about the page, very important, is so we've got these highlights, and I kind of told you earlier about how, you know, if you mouse over this, it kind of shows that person in the network. So as you're reading, you can essentially interact with the visualization, kind of reinforce what's happening, and kind of drive the message really home. In addition, you can quick one, so you can see a quick description of who they are. So, Yu Yangdong is a Politburo member, state councilor, and you want to learn more about her. You can go to the profile. This lovely pink text will not be. Hopefully, if you see this lovely pink text introduction, please email me because that should not be here. This is kind of a highlight as an internal tool to say. There's supposed to be deeper information on this, but it's not. We can't find it in the database, so it's either missing data or hopefully, so you can essentially look. You get a little bio for her. See the position she's holding. She's held essentially the ascent of her career. So she's got low rank party position, and here she's getting provincial deputy and party. And basically everything that kind of comes to a hard stop on this right edge, those are all the roles that she's filling right now. All the positions she holds now. So you can see she's got 10 things. She's got 10 jobs in the government. So, yeah, some of them are government, some of them are party. Some of them are the last project, well, okay, yeah, this is quick. This is just a little bit briefer. We talked about cars, we talked about power. What more is we talked about? This is the top as well. And so basically, for Valentine's Day, we did a little movie project where we did something on Nora Roberts. She's, after J.K. Rowling, she's the world's best-selling author. She's sold millions of books worldwide. Basically, romance novels, extremely formulaic. Each one has a romance of 2 people. So this is the McGregor series, so you can see the books here. So the stars of this book are Darcy and Margaret. And here we have Sue and Bruno. And you can see the description of the text, the thing that you can see, the reviews of it. You can see the Sue and Bruno. And the goddess written text of what happens in the book. You can have it basically just how formulaic it is. And it was just kind of a fun exploration of specific data sets that we really pull. very unique is that each book represents a different romance. Some of the romances have some of this. These people, the kids, offspring, they gave us other books. So we try to cover everything. What do you know about our driving? That's it. Any questions? Anyone? That's an excellent question. It's the motivation is largely that, well, I mean, it's journalism. They want to. It's a story they want to tell, and it's hard to report that they're going on in the system. It's so opaque to so many people. So one of the interesting things is database. We can mention that it's going to evolve. They're going to continue to change it, so it's going to persist to keep up to date. And so it's this nice blend of kind of journalism. And it's almost like a textbook, so you can learn things that you know nothing from. It's sort of a reference point for the articles. So if they're explaining, in every article that they write, they won't have to try to explain the details of the system. They're going to say, hey, go look at the Connected China website. And we've got deep linking in there, so you can navigate directly to a specific person's network or a specific organization and see how things are expresses. We're really excited about it. There's not much out there in terms of journalism reflected in terms of textbooks and interactive media. The integration of the text and the visualization, it's even deeper than what I was able to tell you now. So we're hoping that it persists. It helps with journalism, educate people about what's going on in China. It's this, that it's still the fastest growing economy. It's the second largest economy in the world. Huge part of the national security part.
You had said something that I found interesting in the power presentation about this challenge of showing enough to compel, but not too much where you get lost. Yeah. And in an interactive set of data, it seems more easy to navigate from that because people can sort of go deeper, and I'm curious what your strategy is with a more static representation, how you kind of offer both.
That can be difficult. And some days it's not so true and there it really becomes a matter of an editorial decision. So what we might do is present the overview with call out to specific things, highlight specific details. Or we just make the overview as compelling as possible. And it's designed so we can try to use that summary presentation to let the specifics kind of stand out as well. So we've got to put some good stuff. This is something we did for College Science. And it's basically how the power grid, energy gets generated, what happens to it on. And so this presentation kind of lets you call out, red is petroleum. So obviously that's going to lend itself to some detail because with this presentation it takes so much more space, there's more space to show the details. So interactive is great for reading the details. Print is very easy. What the prototype is this one or the China? That we had a year, so that helps. Basically, though, it was there was a lot of back and forth with the journalists. They would say, "Hey, we want to show something like those that's their stuff for really good careers." And we would go and say, "Hey, we don't have the data for that, or we need an attribute. We need more data, so they enter data and we kind of show it." And it's been very evolutionary because as they enter more data, we discover these things. So for instance, when people got purged during the Cultural Revolution, it's pretty fascinating. they didn't have an attribute that says this person didn't touch your tire, they actually have to respect the attribute now. So we had to kind of tell them, hey, you need to create that attribute and put it in so we can show that. Part of the story. So that was part of the advantage of working with the data team. There's a lot of code like it. But it's funny, we pretty quickly, you know, within a year-long project, but within a month, we pretty much knew we wanted to show the scale number, we were going to show a fancy org chart, and we wanted a network diagram with the feeling I see. Like, we knew that within a few months, because those were just the stories that were speaking.
What kind of sub-teams do you have working on any given project? Like, do you have a data guy, graphic designers,
Yes.
people to go with the journals?
So it's we've definitely gone for a mix of both. Like I know he's trained as a designer, but I love this stuff, so I try to set up next to him. And so some of the designers trust me to make not too stupid decisions on things. At the same time, you know, the designers show some interesting code, some interesting code, and we try to hire nice people so that no one is really afraid of going there. So, you know, everyone wears all hats, but just, you know, to different degrees. And in terms of some teams, it's very different. I was probably, Betty and I did all the development, per se, and also with Katie, who was primarily a designer. She did some of the styling and some of the simple JavaScript. I did most of the JavaScript front end, database stuff, and then did most of the web server. On the Stack side, we also had to create tools for them to make them doing that. And so they did a lot of that. So a huge chunk of work, which is going to be fully able to do.
What were some of the inspirations or motivations for like the color schemes and the icons and the design of the site? Because I feel like, given this is like the Chinese rest of power, it can be very politically charged depending on the way that you design it.
Yeah. Color scheme, we got that from Thomson Reuters. Like they have their internal palette, so we use that as much as possible. In terms of the Cultural Standing Committee and the iconography, it's funny because up until October, November of last year, there were 9 members to the Cultural Standing Committee, so there was a pine pointed star, and it just looked awesome. And then they changed the number down to 7, and so we had to change it. So yeah, I don't think specifically that iconography was charged. I think it's too charged and green, blue, red. It's not too much. I think there's definitely like on the splash page we've got.
Was it like a conscious effort not to use like really bright reds and some other colors that might be perceived as like?
I mean, these are the colors that kind of use flags. You know, the red and gold. They're particularly dark. That was in.
I was just asking if it was like a conscious effort not to use like really bright reds, or maybe like I don't know, like social power having like some other icon maybe that.
Yeah. We didn't try to editorialize too much. We wanted the data to kind of speak for itself.
You mentioned that depending on the story you want to tell, the data can sometimes not support the story or support the story. I guess my question is, are there some projects that through the visualization, the goal is just to discover something as opposed to tell a story? And what's the difference in your design approach between one versus the other?
First question, absolutely. There are data sets that you don't know, and there are data sets that you understand and you're trying to extract the message and deliver it to people. With the kind of piece, we kind of we don't want to control it too much. We don't want to come make our opinions about that, but we want to reveal certain aspects of the data. But frequently when we get a new data set, we build all sorts of stories on the side. So that might reveal just specific numbers, histograms, to see what the distributions are, stuff like that. And then when you've got an expert audience that isn't just trying to discover specific type of data, trying to tell an expert story, you don't want to use so you won't spend as much time introducing the data. They give us this, and this, or you can adjust it this way to these parameters.
Great.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is our Adolfo, and maybe while he sets up. Next to the class. Great, so which are running out at noon. We have plenty of time, we have time to work on things. So, Cesar is the Asahi Broadcasting Corporation
ABC.
Career Development Professor in Media Arts and Science. Thank you so much. At the MIT Media Lab. And he's the director of the Macro Connections Group. He's also an associate at the Harvard Center for International Development. We're asking Cesar to talk about big data today. Is that what you're talking about?
A little bit of our business. I think it's on the other side, yeah.
So his research work focuses on improving and understanding systems of very complex networks and network science. And his recent projects include looking at ways to better understand economic development and industrial policy. And he is a graphic arts enthusiast, it says on his bio. But I think what is interesting about the issue he is grappling with is how do you take this huge amounts of data and make them understandable to others. He holds a PhD actually in physics, which I think is also interesting. So a lot of people who are coming to us as experts in a certain field are actually coming from backgrounds in other fields.
And let's see if we can make this machine works.
Yeah.
Going to plug and unplug.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
Okay. I'm unplug. Plug.
Is there computers and
They're like basically in. I want to detect this place again. Let me see if I try like a non-generic download. I'll move that to the it's only one.
Yeah.
There. And then, like Igodagi here, so it means that probably so that's me, you know. So I thought that if we're gonna talk about data, you know, it makes sense, you know, to have an introduction that presents like a different type of picture of myself. My name is Cesar Hidalgo, and you know, excuse me, your name is? As Mijin. As Mijin mentioned, I'm a physicist by training, but I'm quite intellectually promiscuous, and you know, I've been working in a number of different topics, many of which you know, deal with data, deal with visualizations. And this is not because data and visualization are my bread and butter, but because I'm interested in understanding the world, and I find out that, especially in our day and age, you know, that there's great availability of data, making use of visualization tools help us, you know, understand the world. So it helps in that mission as much as math can help us in that mission, as much as statistical models can help us in this mission, and as much as many other things. Now, you know, you guys know this site, no? 23andMe? Okay? I think it gives you like, because I always wonder if I had a little bit of Native American in me, now I know I have. You know? Yeah, and you get to learn a little bit about yourself. Now, what I have prepared for today is a number of different things. The first thing that I want to start with is to tell you a little bit about the history of information visualization. Oh, it went off again. Yeah, the speed looks.
Looks like on your screen.
Because what I wanted to do first, is tell you a little bit of the history of information visualization. I realized that most people that are familiar with visualizations have a very an understanding that is based very much on recent projects and a recent history of this. I have Mac wanted to update the computer, so perfect timing, Steve. Let's see, that will make it work. Good. So I wanted to start first telling you a little bit about the history of information visualization. And for some reason, it's a little bit difficult to get started, but we are there now. Okay? And then, after we look at the history, I want to tell you a little bit about some of the projects that I've been doing in this area. Okay? And actually, the history of information visualization, I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but it starts quite some time ago. And it starts in Edinburgh, in Scotland, more than 200 years ago. Because I'm sure that all of you guys are familiar with like the pie chart and the bar chart and the line graph, but I'm sure that you also understand that cavemen, when they were drawing, like these stick figures of men chasing buffaloes, they didn't have pie charts and they didn't have bar charts and they didn't have line graphs, so they had to be invented somewhere in between. Okay? And actually, many of you probably are familiar with this man, Adam Smith, and he was part of like a very interesting group of people in Edinburgh that involved James Watt, who probably you're also familiar with. He, is credited for having perfected the steam engine. He didn't invent the steam engine, but he perfected the steam engine such that it could be efficient enough that it wasn't a toy anymore, it could become a tool, And then David Hume, who was a mathematician, and a philosopher, but also there was John Playfair, who was another mathematician, and he had two brothers, James and Little Willie. Okay? So Little Willie worked as an assistant to James Watt at that time, and actually he also worked with Adam Smith. He was the editor of the 1805 edition of the Wealth of Nations. And some of the work that he did this work called the Commercial and Political Atlas, in which he would try to represent an economy using a different number of visualizations. In 1787, this work was received, by Louis XVI, and he invited Playfair to Paris. And Playfair went to Paris, and Louis XVI was so excited about the work that he decided to give Playfair like a small steel mill, for him to run and for him to be able to have a way of supporting his living and keep on, performing this craft. Unfortunately, 1787 was not the best time to make friends with the King of France, okay? Because you know that the French Revolution is 1789, okay? So definitely, that cut the time of William Playfair in France a little bit short, and he had to come back, to Scotland, okay? But for example, Playfair is credited with the invention of the pie chart. This is one of like those first pie charts. So that's how a pie chart of the 1700s look like, or the late 1700s look like, okay? And he was able to realize one of the basic things about visualization, which is the answer of the question of why we visualize. Because in some sense, when we're visualizing, we're using an alternative form of representation, for things that we can represent in less visual means. So for example, when I have like this little table here, okay, with 5 numbers, there's some simple operations that are very hard to make when you take numerical representations, and they're very fast and easy to make through visual representations. Some of this, and I think, actually I'm getting some of this screen too. But for example, one representation that is easy to, one operation that is easy to do with visual representations is the operation of sorting. If I show you this pie chart, knowing which is the largest wedge and which is the smaller wedge is kind of easy, because it's very conspicuous. When I have a set of numbers, actually I'm going to have to go with my eyes back and forth between them and make those multiple comparisons. Finding the maximum, finding the minimum is much more easy in a visual representation than in a numerical representation. So that's why he realized that eventually making these visual representations makes sense. This is another example of a visualization done by Playfair. This is in the year 1801, and here you have the balance of trade between England and Ireland, used to be in favor of Ireland slightly, in the early 1700s, and then, it's largely in the favor of England. Okay? Now here, is the balance of trade between England and the United States. Okay, here, like in the late 1770s, the relationships sort of like get ruined, so then you see that there's a dip, but then eventually, trade, catches back up again. So that was in the beginning, of the 1800s or in the late 1700s. Then after that, we have Charles Joseph Minard. Many of you probably have heard of Minard, okay? And this I find to be like a very beautiful picture, more than the one that everyone puts everywhere, which is the one of the March of the Troops, towards Moscow, And this picture is from 1862, and it shows the migration between Europe, and different parts of the world, okay? And here you're using, a visualization technique in which the width, of the segment is conserved, but is divided on different destinations. So here you see people from England going to Canada, going to North America, and going to Australia. And here you see people from Northern Europe coming to Americas. And you see that in the 1860s, the contribution, from Northern Europe was maybe in the United States was actually larger than the contribution of people that was coming, from the British Isles. Yeah? So that comes out clearly there. There you also see that the amount of people going, from Spain to America was relatively small at that time. Yeah? Okay? And then you see that actually there's a big migration to Australia at that time as well. Okay. So that's, an example of some of the work that Minard did. But the thing is also visualizations have not only been used to tell stories and to illustrate things, but actually to advance, political agendas, in difficult situations. How many of you are familiar with this map or have seen this map before? So there's a few people in the room that have seen this map, so that's good because then you're going to find the story interesting. You're not going to have heard the story before. So, you know that, for example, if you get cholera or you get a flu or you get a cold, you know that basically you're getting a virus or a bacteria and you have to take some medicine to try to eliminate that. And that's something that we know because obviously we have developed a germ theory of disease that we all learn about when we're very, very little. Yeah? But if you go back to the 1850s, people did not believe on the germ theory of disease. Actually, they believed that people got sick for different reasons. Does anybody remember, what were the theories of disease that existed in the 1850s and the 1840s? Why people got sick? Well, so at that time they had the humor theory of disease, right? So the body, had certain humors. The humors were earth, water, wind, and fire, and they were associated with different bodily fluids, like blood, bile, black bile, and eventually, in order to cure someone, you would have to try to balance those fluids. So, for example, using leeches was very common because that was a way of draining blood, and by draining blood, it would help adjust the humors, according to the theory. That doesn't mean that it worked. Also, theory of disease at that time, there were a lot of people that subscribed to more religious theories of disease. What's your name? If Anna became sick, it's because maybe she had been having impure thoughts or she had been doing something bad to her sister or whatever. It wasn't because there was a germ. It was something that basically was a higher power that was punishing her through the disease. So in some sense, people that got a disease had it coming, because this was a form of religious justice that was believed to happen. Okay? But not everybody believed that idea, and if you think about it, in 1839, the modern theory of the cell had been advanced. Okay? So among the people that was a little bit skeptic about that was John Snow. John Snow was a doctor, and was also a statistician. And in the 1850s in London, there was an important cholera outbreak. Okay, so there was this big cholera outbreak, and people were wondering about what should we do about this, But they didn't know what to do about it, and John Snow came up with a clever idea of, instead of going directly to the patients and trying to treat them, he decided to create a map of where the patients, used to live. So you see this map here, and you see that there's a lot of these little black, segments around here. If you look at it very, very closely, these are not solid bars, but these are sort of like little lines, and each one of these lines counts a patient. Okay, so you see this big black bar here, this is because in that unit, in that building, there were a lot of patients, that got infected with cholera. And then here, you see that there's a lot of people with cholera around this neighborhood, this part of Soho, but there's no people that got infected with cholera here or there or there. Okay? So the first thing that became conspicuous when John Snow created this map is that the outbreak of cholera was extremely localized. Yeah? So that's something that became kind of obvious. The second thing is that it provided support to a theory that maybe there is a foci, because if there is a foci, probably it's going to be localized. If it's, God just striking, his finger on the people that have been, naughty, then there's no reason why that would be localized. It would have to be a little bit more scattered, more random. So here you're going to see also, and I understand that, the room is kind of long and the picture is not that big, so I'm going to just point to them. So here you see that there's a little dot here in the middle of the street. This is a pump, and then you see that there are other pumps in the map. For example, up there, that's another pump, okay? And down here, that's another pump, okay? So basically, the theory of John Snow was, well, actually this cholera outbreak is not caused by you being naughty or by Marcelo the Hubers. It's caused by something, that is being passed on, some sort of germ, some sort of pathogen, and that pathogen is concentrated in the bloodstream pump. So there was a very simple policy intervention that he suggested. Shut off the pump. You shut off the pump, you stop the spread of the disease because people is getting water from that pump and they're getting contaminated. So they close the pump, and that stopped the spread of the disease. Okay? So basically, by doing that, by doing this map, he was able to provide support to the theory of disease that he was advocating for, and he was able to create an intervention that ultimately, helped him, cure a large number of patients. It's sort of like the beginning of public health, if you think about it, because you're not treating a patient individually, you're trying to treat a cause that exists in the environment. And this visualization was something that made that possible. Actually, I had this other slide here. So here you see everything that I was talking about. You see the pump, and you see the little lens. Okay? Now you guys know about Florence Nightingale. Okay? So Florence Nightingale was a nurse, and she participated in the Crimean War. For those of you that are not familiar with where Crimea is, have you seen the map of Ukraine and where Ukraine goes into the Black Sea? There's sort of like this little peninsula. That's Crimea. Okay? And after she came back from the Crimean War, the Queen asked her to provide a report on what she thought would have been good health interventions, to have, for the soldiers. And the point that she was trying to make was that actually the soldiers were not dying because of a lack of urgent care, but actually they were dying because of preventable causes. So she wrote this long report and she provided it to the Queen, and the report, like most reports, they probably got drawered, and what put inside a drawer, nobody paid attention to it, nobody looked at it. So then, after like 6 months, she decided to follow up, okay? And she followed up, with actually like a short document that contained on the back of it this figure. Okay? And I like this figure because for 1858 the design was kind of modern. In 1858 you imagine sort of like this, like more like a picture of like a bottle of olive oil type of thing, like very curvy and intricate. But it's a very clear design, and basically what she's trying to show here is that the black people is the one that represent an area for the deaths from so the area black the black line across the boundary marks the boundary of the deaths from all other causes during the month. The point, and then these ones are causes that were not preventable, and what she says is that the blue wedge is the one that are preventable causes. Okay? So what the image tries to illustrate that month after month, basically most of the soldiers were dying from conditions that would have been prevented, that didn't require urgent care, and that urgent care had developed because these prevention measures have not been taken. Okay? Now this is also a great example of how to lie by doing figures, because certainly, what she's using to encode information is the distance between the center, and the edge of the wedge. But the wedge is getting wider as you go out. And basically the area is increasing just because you have decided to put the blue on the outside instead of the blue on the inside. Okay? But the point is that this image is credited to have given her the attention from the establishment to be able to start implementing the changes that she suggested. Okay? So the visualization was very important in that communication. So now I'm going to jump forward 150 years, and I'm going to continue in this theme, the theme being, how do you use visualization and these type of tools to try to help, improve the ability of governments to make decisions. And why, I'm thinking about governments and their ability to make decisions is because governments are very different than other organizations in some very fundamental dimensions. The first thing is, let's say that I'm in the hat manufacturing business. If I'm in the hat manufacturing business, and I manufacture funky hats, and there's some people that don't like my hats, I don't need to care about them. I can care about the people that like funky hats and make the best funky hats for those that like funky hats. But if I'm the government, I cannot sort of like decide what's going to be like my target or my market within the population. Everyone, is my customer. Okay? The rich and the poor are my customer. The ones that voted for me and the ones that didn't vote for me are my customers. The health and the sick are my customers. The ones that use Mac, the ones that use PC are my customers. Okay? So the first thing that governments have is that, basically they don't have the ability to define a narrow customer base in which to specialize in. And that implies that their need for information is much more vast than for other organizations, because they need to know about everything, because they need to regulate, the financial system, and they need to regulate internet porn. They need to regulate things that are completely different, when in reality, private sector firms do not have to satisfy those constraints. And that makes governments extremely information intensive, because in order to be able to act, they need to know about their citizens, and they need to know about the problems that they have, and they need to know where they are, and they need to have a lot of information about them. That if you have a lot of information about a large group of people, you also need to find ways of aggregating that information and representing that information, and also acting on that information. So in some sense, it's an extremely information-intensive business. Now, there is a third thing that makes the government extremely information-intensive and makes the business of government difficult, is that the services that the government provide are usually not transacted in a market. So also there's no way of revealing any information about the value of those services. I'm not an advocate of the price mechanism being the true revealer of the value of a good or the value of a service. I think that is extremely imperfect, and we can spend a whole evening talking about those imperfections. But the point is that when it comes to government, they have to worry about healthcare, and they have to worry about education, and they have to worry about communication infrastructure, and they have to worry about a number of different things. But the actions that they do, since they're not transacted, you don't know if they're actions that should be prioritized very highly or not. In the market, you do have that. You know that things that basically are more expensive, would be things that they have higher demand, and therefore, as demand increases, things become more expensive, and therefore that gives you a signal that you should provide more of those. In this case, you don't have that. So that's why thinking about how to use data to help improve the information capacities of governments is important. Now, I'm going to jump 150 years, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of what is that we have been doing. And my work has concentrated quite a bit on trying to understand, why we have the conspicuous differences that we see all over the world. Okay? And some people like to talk about this in terms of having rich and poor countries. I think that that is not actually the right framing. Actually what I think that countries do differ on is on matters of capacity more than in matters of income. There's a lot of countries that are low capacity that are rich, would be countries that export a lot of raw materials, and there are countries, that are high capacity and that are still relatively poor, because they're in the process of catching up. And to understand this process, what I've come to understand is that eventually, instead of focusing on how much you make, you need to start paying attention on describing the world in terms of what is being made. Okay? But in order to understand what is being made, we need a theory that helps us, understand the difference between the different products that can be made. And for that, I'm going to compare apples to apples. Because comparing apples to apples should be a fair comparison. You don't compare apples to oranges. You have to compare apples and apples. You know? So let's compare apples to apples, and the question I'm going to ask you is, well, both of these are products. Both of these have name, have prices, have marketing campaigns, have distribution networks, everything that makes it a product. They both cross international boundaries. You know, they go through customs and whatnot. You know, but there's one important difference between the two of them. You know, and I'm gonna try to see if I can get you guys, you know, to help me understand what the difference is. So what's the big difference between the apples on the left and the apples on the right? What would you guys say is the big difference between the two? Yes? Well, price and what you can do with them, I would say, like, yeah, they're different in price, but like apple on the right can be very different in price from like a very expensive and exotic fruit, and the difference in price would be an epiphenomenon, but not within the level. Yeah.
One is a commodity, while another which is a, one is a commodity, the apple is a commodity. Is a commodity good, while the apple on the left is not?
Not quite, yeah.
One's perishable, the other one is not.
Okay, that's, yeah. Not quite, yeah. Not fundamentally enough, yeah.
The scale taken to develop.
Okay, so that's where we're approximating. That's you know where the key is gonna be. So let me tell you like the way that I phrase this. Thanks Pete for the comment. I don't have an apple to give you today. Okay? But the main difference, if you think about it deeply, is the following. Is that the first apple, let's call it Apple 1, was a product that existed first in the world and then in our heads. Okay? So there were apples before we had a name for apple, before we had a price for apple, before we had a market for apple, you know. The Apple II, on the other hand, was a product that was first in someone's head and then in the world. So you think about it, you know, from a physics point of view, both products are highly organized collections of order. Yeah? They're highly organized pieces of matter. They're negative entropy, as you would say. Okay? Actually, I can argue that from the point of view of order, this apple is more complex than that apple. Because the apple that I eat is so complex that even if I bite into it, I don't see the moving parts of its machinery. Its machinery resides at this molecular level, and you have like these genes and RNAs and proteins that actually have been able to distribute energy to the right points in time in a microscopic level that actually this other machine is not able to do. You know? So it's a really complex and highly organized piece of matter. But the difference is that this other piece of matter, like the second apple, is something that existed first in someone's head and then in the world. Okay? So while they're both crystals of order, you know, this apple crystallized the order of evolution and self-organization. This one, you know, crystallizes imagination. And now I'm going to ask you to do a very simple exercise. So look around the room, you know, and look at the different objects that you're able to identify. So you can identify a lot of different objects. There's a carpet, and there are chairs, you know, and there are objects also that you have, you know, like your clothes. I have like this clicker in my hand. There's a projector, you know, there's a wall, and all those things. So imagine now that you have looked at all of these objects, and I'm going to give you a magic wand. And you're going to take this magic wand, and you're going to go ping, okay? And when you go ping with the magic wand, there's one thing that's going to happen. That anything that was ever imagined by someone is going to disappear. Okay? So imagine what it is. Ping! And everything that was imagined by someone disappeared. Now what happened? Now where are we? Yeah?
Naked and sitting on the ground.
Exactly. Naked and sitting on the ground or in the snow, depending on the day, this time of the year. Or we're completely naked. Can we talk? We don't have a language, you know, because like words have to be invented and honed and submitted through imagination and through a determinative process that requires, you know, our mental capacity. So when you think about it, that the difference between our societies and the societies of animals is not the fact that, you know, our society is made of self-interested people that are looking to get a buck, and that is what raises our, you know, to higher levels of prosperity, is that our society has been able to create, you know, to organize itself in ways in which teams of people can transform the castles that exist in the sky into castles in the ground. Okay? So our world is tangible, but it's made of fiction at the same time. Okay? And that's sort of like the big difference. Okay? So basically understanding the problem of development is not understanding why there's some countries that are rich and why there's some countries that are poor. It's understanding, you know, why some collections of people have been able to develop enormous capacity to crystallize their imagination. Okay? While other people, you know, can at best, you know, like sell materials to be able to buy the crystals of imagination of others. Okay? And actually thinking about the word in terms of crystallized imagination is a little bit different than thinking about the word in other terms. You know? For example, you think about the words in terms of raw materials or products and services. So someone, for example, use the distinction of talking about commodities and manufactured goods. Actually, it's not necessarily the same. So let me give you like a few examples. First of all, when you think about products and services, you might say, well, products would be everything that is manufactured and tangible, and services would be the things that are non-tangible. Okay? But a movie crystallizes imagination. A chair crystallizes imagination. Okay? But a movie is non-tangible from that point of view. A movie, it is physical because all information is physical, although people tend to forget the physicality of things that are not atomic, but actually bits are stored, through physical means, in computers, and they're carried through physical means in wires, and they exist physically in synapses in your brains, okay? So everything is physical from that perspective, but they differ, on the imagination that they crystallize, not whether, and the distinction of products and services is actually not the distinction that we want to make, because there are services, for example, like, let's say that you're making beds at a hotel, as a maid. Then you're not crystallizing imagination. Or you're a furniture retailer. Then you're a monger of crystals of imagination, So in some sense, talking about service and manufacturers, is not the right distinction. It's better to talk about, like products that crystallize different amounts of imagination, or products or services that are moving crystals of imagination around them, or not. Now, when you think about imports and exports, countries are not trading atoms. Actually, countries can have a positive trade balance, but can have a negative imagination balance. Okay? So you can have a country that actually, is exporting a large number of atoms, like for example, oil, molecules, okay, or copper molecules, but it's importing anything that has been imagined, So in that case, when you're starting to think about international trade, you're going to think about a balance of other things. And we're going to see that is important because also, if you have a positive, trade balance when it comes, to imagination, you're likely to have a trade balance when it comes to pushing your culture. When the US sells jeans, it's selling also a culture. When the US sells, cigarettes, it's also, a cultural phenomenon. When you sell a car, you're selling, you're buying a car that is constructed according to like the German school of design, or a car that is constructed according to the Italian school of design. You're also buying imagination and ideas and culture. But when you're buying, like several, cubic tons of sulfur dioxide, and copper, that you're going to smell, basically, you are not selling any culture or any imagination or any of your creativity. Now the thing is, okay, this is all fine and dandy, philosophically, but how do we go and actually measure it, and how do we going to go and get from here to visualization? Okay, because that's sort of where we have to end up at some point. And the thing is, it is possible to do this, because there is good data, telling me which country produces which crystals of imagination, or products that crystallize a certain amount of imagination. I have a structure on the network of who makes what. Okay? And I can use that, and I'm not going to show you how you do the math to do that, to create measures of how sophisticated a country is or how sophisticated a product is. Okay? And the idea is very simple, is you assume that, products are sort of like a combination of Lego pieces, and the more Lego pieces you require, sort of like the more imagination that you're crystallizing. And countries are buckets of Legos that have some pieces that are missing others, and you can use this to explain the structure of which country makes which product. Okay, so this is the network that you're trying to explain, and you're just assuming that a country can make a product if it has all the capabilities that that product requires, or all the Lego pieces that that product requires. If you do that with a data set of 1,000 products and hundreds of countries, what you find is, what comes out to be as the most complex products are sort of like these machines to make machines. Machines and appliances for specialized particular industries, instruments and appliances for physical or chemical analysis, appliances based on the use of X-rays or radiation. What comes out to be like the least sophisticated is crude oil, tin ores, cotton, cocoa bean, sesame seeds. The countries that come out to be the most sophisticated are Japan, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Austria, Finland, Singapore, Czech Republic, the UK, and Slovenia. The least sophisticated come out to be Papua New Guinea, Congo, Sudan, Angola, and Mauritania. Okay? Now, the nice thing about this is that here I have income per capita, and here I have sort of this measure of economic complexity, which is the ability of a country to crystallize imagination. Here I have highlighted 3 countries. The blue is Singapore, the red is Chile, and the yellow is Pakistan, and I have done so because these are three countries that export exactly the same number of products. And I use this to illustrate the fact that actually the structure of the network matters, is not the number of products that you export. Okay? But when you look at this, you say, well, the countries that, given the products that they're able to make, we think that they are able to crystallize large amounts of imagination, like Japan, Germany, and the United States, are countries that tend to be rich, countries that crystallize little imagination tend to be poor. But there's also a lot of countries that are off the diagonal, that are outliers. Now, if the ability to crystallize imagination is what matters, then the difference between the dot and the line should be what predicts growth. And it actually does predict growth, and it predicts growth very well. So countries tend to converge to a level of income that is determined by the mix of products that they're able to make. So if you look at a country like China, a country like China would be a country that has a product structure that indicates an ability to create a set of goods, that is much more sophisticated than the current level of income. So they're doomed to grow. When you look at Greece, on the same analysis, you find that Greece is a country that has too much income given the mix of products that it's able to make and given its ability to crystallize imagination, and therefore, it's a country that should not be growing as fast. Yes?
Sorry, how are you measuring capacity to crystallize imagination?
I would suggest go to the reference because I'm not going to go to the math. So, it's an eigenvector of a projection of the matrix that will country to a product that they export. That would be the most succinct one sentence explanation. Now, we understand that eventually the mix of products that countries make is important. Okay? But we need to find ways also of communicating that and to try to understand also how this mix evolves. So let me show you now like a map of all of the products in the world. So this is not a map of countries, but this is a map of products. Okay? And this is a map that is called the product space. So here each dot represents a good. Okay? So for example, the big blue dot here, these are cars, and this other big blue dot are car parts, and here you're going to have tires, and here you're going to have buses, and truck tires, and things like that. Here in the green cluster, you have things like shirts, and socks, and cotton underwear, and silk underwear, and scarves, and you have other things, like tablecloths, and things like that. Okay? Now, the links connect products that are very likely to be co-exported. And we say that products are co-exported, meaning if products are co-exported, it means that probably they require the same set of imaginational capacities to be made. Okay? So if you have the ability to create shirts, you probably going to have the ability to create blouses. And that's going to be expressing the fact that countries that export shirts also export blouses. Okay? So there's a very tightly connected cluster here is the garment cluster. Okay? Now, not every product is in a cluster. And the size of the product here tells you the amount of world trade, so how big, that product is. So the big node here, that's oil. So you see oil is very big. It's 5% of world trade, but it's very lonely. It's all the way up there, by itself. So now, what I'm going to show is I'm going to show you a live demo that we're going to use to try to look at the ways that countries, develop by moving along this space. Okay? Okay. So now here, in this chart, what I show is like I have the product space, and I have grayed out all of the products, that Malaysia does not export in the year 1986. And the ones that have, full saturation, these are the nodes of the products that they do export. Okay? So you see that they export, some things here and there, so let's look at what those are. So for example, they export electronic microcircuits, data and transistors, vehicle radio receivers, color TVs, air conditioning machines, parts not that were specified of electronic circuits, other equipment and machinery, electrical resistors, printed circuits and parts. But for example, they do not export, cultural peripheral hardware. But they do not export part of cash registers and calculating machines. They export very little of that. They don't export CPUs. Okay? Now, if this is story that countries develop by having a certain set of Lego pieces and expanding that, and those get expressed in products that are similar to the ones that they already made, the prediction would be that as we go forward in time, Malaysia will start exporting cultural and peripheral hardware, parts of cash register machines, and CPUs. Yeah? Good. So let's press play here. Good. And I'm gonna see how like, the process starts. Well, I don't know, there is a little bit of moving around, but you see that very quickly they were able to populate, all of this electronics cluster, and they were able to jump those roads that are close by. Okay? And since then they have been sort of like trying, they're lacking different areas without too much light. They're moving now a little bit more into this chemical cluster that we were discussing before. Okay? Now this is part of a site that we created, which is called Observatory of Economic Complexity. It was a site that we created at my group, with one of my math students, and it's what I like to call a rapid visualization engine. So a rapid visualization engine is a site that, creates a lot of visualizations, from a data set in which you can observe a lot of different cuts. So this site here, produces more than 30 million visualizations that are interactive. Okay? So for example, I can go here and I can look, let's say, what does Guatemala export? I say, oh, Guatemala exports bananas, and green and roasted coffee substitute, knitted jerseys, and I can ask myself, yeah, well, and what are the products that Guatemala exports to China? It's mostly, sugar, beet, and cane. Or I can ask myself, what, does Guatemala export, to Chile? And then, sugar cane and refined sugar, so this being a little bit more sophisticated than the sugar cane, but then I can ask myself also, where does, Guatemala, in this case export petroleum, or where does Guatemala, export, let's say, knitted jerseys and pullovers and cardigans, which we know that is one of the exports, they end up mostly in the United States. 98% end up in the United States. If we look at, let's say, refined sugar, Mexico and Chile. So you see that you can start very, very quickly exploring a lot of combinations, and if you start looking at the combinations of the number of products, countries, and destinations, you realize that the number of combinations explode, especially then when you multiply by the number of years, because this, is now for the year 2009, but I could have gone back, and in 1977, all of that refined sugar was coming into the United States, and eventually at some point it was Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, Chile. You see how the destinations have been evolving over time. Okay? So that's one project. And this is a project that gets like 20,000 visitors a month, and actually a lot of the visitors come from many different places in which there are development agencies or regional governments or things like that. What we have started doing recently also is to help develop better tools that explore the same idea of creating a rapid visualization engine, but now for local governments. So what I'm going to show next is a project that is still quite unfinished. Okay? So it's going to look unfinished, and I'm going to show just like a few snippets of it. Okay? So now, here basically Brazil, have been collaborating with the state of Minas Gerais. The state of Minas Gerais is a state in Brazil that is relatively big. It has 22 million people and the size of France in area. So it's by all means a country, and they have provided us a lot of data that connects not only industries and locations, but industry locations and occupations. So for example, here I'm looking at the municipality of Uberlândia, okay, which is a municipality in Minas Gerais, and these are, for example, the different industries that are located in Uberlândia. So if I look at manufacturing, for example, we manufacture food products, tobacco, beverages, and then, if I go, let's say, deeper into food products, I will be able to see that they be meat, vegetable and animal oil, grain meals, and whatnot. I can also, for example, ask myself, well, what type of people, do they employ, and, I have professionals of arts and sciences, and if I would look there, for example, here, I get all of the teachers of early childhood education. So here I realize that, from all of those professionals in art and science, 30%, would be school teachers, occupational medicine, and then you have clinicians and whatnot. Now, the thing is, one of the things that people are interested in there is, can we use, this data that has already been collected by the government to help, catalyze better decisions about the places where industries can locate. So these are apps that I have shown you so far that only tell you where you are and what's there. you know. But then you can also do something that is a little bit more analytical. Let me see if I can do this a little bit more than make it fit. So now here, you know, I'm asking myself, well, what occupations that are required by computing consultancy and computer facilities management activities are employed in Uberlanda? And here you see that you see a bunch of circles. Each one of the circles represents, you know, an occupation. And you see that some circles are filled and some circles are empty. So the filled circles represent the occupations that you have, and the empty represents the ones that you don't. Okay? So you know what you have and what you're missing when I get there. You know? You can actually group them, you know, by the ones that you don't have and the ones that you have. You know? And you see sort of like how far you are, how many more, you know, pieces you need to be able to develop that industry. Okay? Now, you know, you see that here there are some things that are larger than others, you know, and the size is proportional to importance, meaning that, you know, we're going to say that things are important if they are very specific to that industry, and they're not important if they're employed by many industries. So an administrative assistant in this case, you know, tend to be not important. For example, you know, they're not drivers of vehicles, but the fact that you don't have like the drivers of vehicles there appears to be something that you said is not very important because it is a little small node, meaning that they're very easy to get. Okay? But when it comes to technicians in telecommunications, those are hard to get, and that's why that node is big. Okay? And then you can look at them by wage, you know, or average monthly wage, you know, the number of employees that you're going to need. So you're going to need a lot of analysis of information technology. You're going to need very few drivers, you know, and so forth. Okay? Now that's sort of one of the projects that I wanted to tell you about, and I think we're sort of out of time, you know. So I'll skip, you know, the other projects, you know, that I was going to show, and I guess it would be better to take some questions and try to open it up for discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Sir.
Have you found any unexpected patterns coming out, like trade, is that trade going for per year? Also, is the kind of flowers growing in Canada?
Yeah, but so then like the patterns that we try to look are patterns that help us predict, you know, like growth, or that help us predict transformation, like which country is gonna jump to a product or which country is gonna, you know, move out of a product. And therefore, in that case, we do find like relatively strong patterns, so we find a decent level of predictability in the system.
Do you work with countries to show them, like, you know, there's a direction you need to get more conditions to increase, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Although like going from there to actually being able to implement those conditions, it becomes a whole, you know, different set of problems. Yeah.
Are these, I guess you kind of touched upon it, but are these sort of visualizations scalable down to, like, let's say the company level, so you can go by department and visualize like each sort of sub-department rather than the whole country?
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea here is, if you think about it, for example, if you look at this site is constructed on a database of 70 million social security records, in which we have people and we know, you know, where they work, what was their social security contribution and therefore their salary, okay, what occupation they were performing and then start the work, and where was that located. And we have the history of that. So by having the history of that, you know, we have basically, the challenge was to design a set of different tools that would allow us to make that data visible. Because I think one big problem with the government is that governments collect a lot of data. Okay? But they have no ways of giving that data back to the people in ways that are visible and that can, you know, and that can be made useful. Okay? So imagine that that data exists, and in the US, data to create this site already would exist, and in most countries it would exist. It would be in different classifications, we have maybe different, you know, collection biases, you know, but even the people in government are not able to see the data, you know, because the data basically is sort of like billing data that is collected for some operational purposes, and there are some things that are being done with it, but they're not being mined to try to create tools that allow us to create this information. So eventually, if the data is available, you're always going to be able to design some rapid visualization engine that is going to help you, you know, go and look at the slice of data that you want when you want. You know, obviously there's a lot of curation of predefining what are the slices that you want to see, you know, and how you design those slices. You know? But once you have them, now let's say that you're curious about the exports between, you know, Mauritius and Cyprus, you know that you can go to that site, and in 2 seconds you're going to be able to get it. You know, so the idea is that, you know, you create a design that, given a data set, is able to span as much as possible for the combinatorial set of options that would be interesting for a user. You know? So there is that aspect, you know, of the, let's say, the invisible aspect of the design process, which is the concept of what are the things that are going to be interesting, what is the data that I'm going to need to collect for that, what are the calculations that I'm going to need to make behind the scenes, because the user doesn't need to know about the complexity of the calculations, and then, you know, you develop a visual language to be able to communicate those with them. Yeah. But that's very scalable.
I have a question
Sure.
about maybe the relationship between math and data. So, you know, some people talk about now with all the, you know, big data, you can find patterns, and so once we have all the patterns, then we can start to assume that we can predict when we see patterns emerge again, and that's all through data, as opposed to prior tools when there wasn't the ability to process all this data, where you would have to create more predictive formulas, let's say, and things like that. And it seems like in your work you have both, although you haven't explained exactly the math behind it, but I'm curious about the relationship then between math versus data.
I think that's an excellent question. Like the relationship between math and graphics is obvious and it's infinite. You know, like any basically graphic representation has an algebraic representation. You know, and if you do geometry, maybe it could be that the algebraic representation is a horrible, you know, set of terms, you know, and it uses special functions and whatnot. But there's always a duality between the two. You know? So there is an intimacy, you know, that I think is by definition, you know, constructed between the two. Now, when it comes to like this view, which I do agree that has been prevalent sort of like in the media and so forth, that now you're not going to need to have, you know, models, and I don't believe that that is the case. I do believe that you can use data to create machine learning that in some sense is a little bit blind, you know, to why things work, but eventually, for people to understand and for us to be able to advance and go to the next level, we need to be able to translate all of those patterns into something that we understand. So we have to be able to develop those narratives. You know, we have to be able to explain why. We have to be able to develop a mechanistic theory of why it works and why it not works, and what will be the counterexamples that will demonstrate us, you know, the cases in which, you know, if we violate one of these assumptions, it will stop working. You know? So I do think that you need that, you know, and the full understanding is going to be holistic. You know, it's going to incorporate, you know, the use of like these large data sets. These large data sets, the thing is, what I do think that they actually do is they advance the math and the analytics on the other side. Because, and this is something that I think a lot about, so thank you for the question. So if you think about the way that people have been thinking about the world and on macro terms, we think about like things like GDP, life expectancy, and, you know, average years of schooling, and, you know, like percentage of female in the labor force. These are all extremely aggregate statistics. These are all basically we're reducing a whole set of dimensions into like one number that usually is sort of like an average type of number. Okay? And since this is what we can observe, the theories that we have constructed are theories that try to explain the variation of those numbers. So you have models of growth that try to explain growth based on the number of people, which is labor, the number of, you know, the total value of all the physical machines, which you would call capital, and, you know, the amount of time that people have spent in school, that the people would call human capital. No, but these extremely aggregate theories, I think, you know, are not useful to get a deeper understanding of the problem. But in some sense, if you would want to do a more disaggregated theory, and you want to get more sophisticated, you would start escaping the realm of science, and you would go into a very speculative world, because you wouldn't have data to be able to compare that on the other side. I think that what big data and this disaggregated data, this high resolution data is making possible is that now I have to come up with a theory not about like how many people are employed in Uberlandia. I can come up with a theory that tells, well, you know, why, let's say, maybe, you know, in Uberlandia is more likely that in the future, at the missions of operational monitoring computers, you know, is going to come after than a lawyer, you know, because I have that level of resolution, you know, so I can create theories at the level of resolution. And when I'm creating theories at the level of resolution, I'm not trying to explain numbers anymore. I'm trying to explain structures. So I have to create a theory that explains the structure of a network and not necessarily the dynamic of a single neuron. You know, so I do think that that's for me like the connection, and that's sort of like what the big change is. It's not one versus the other. It's actually how both reinforce each other. Where I think the change is happening.
Any other questions? Great.
Thank you.
Just a couple quick announcements. So I keep sending that email about the graduate student number because it's going to become catastrophic if the graduate students don't register for the MAS S64. So make sure you do that before the drop deadline. We're meeting here next week. Are there any issues with lab? Any questions about the assignments? And you'll have, I think, something like 8 minutes per group to present. For that, but I think you guys are still working on it. Okay, great. Any other general questions for the class? Okay, great. So see you next week.
Thank you. And what I think I have didn't have to go to the vision part, but I think it's very also like I don't know, I really have to